We are now in section 5, the partners and suppliers dimension for the practice. Most organizations do not deliver services using their own resources. They often use resources from suppliers and partners, in other words, third parties. In fact, the relationship management practice is extremely important with respect to such third parties because they will be the key stakeholders with whom effective and healthy relationships must be maintained. So all the practice recommendations apply for third parties also. However, for faster and more effective service delivery, organizations need to choose closer cooperation with their partners and suppliers rather than having formal bureaucratic barriers in communication, and therefore go towards collaboration and collaborative decision making as much as possible. And all parties should aim for mutual transparency on one hand, and also any changes, for example, change schedule, etc., should be visible to each other. In this picture, we can see how suppliers and partners are included in the organization system of several relationships. So we have in this box here, we have the customer who is obtaining service from internal service provider, one or more such customers. And then there are internal users and sponsors. So the customers, internal users, and sponsors together make up the internal consumers. And then we also have the external B2C users, and we have the external B2B users. And so these are the actual clients of the company. And then we have the service integrator who is managing other suppliers. And then there is one supplier who is directly managed by the internal service provider. So there can be such chain of relationships between consumers and suppliers, or customers and suppliers. So most of the time, an organization is not only a consumer, but also a provider. Continuing with the third party's role in relationship management practice. In that picture, we saw the service integrator, and that's when some organizations delegate the management of third-party relationships to a separate service integrator. The service integrator, however, will work closely with the organization, more like a partner, which means the organization and the integrator would share information for a mutually successful relationship. And one key thing to note here is the integrator is likely to be involved in developing and promoting the relationship management approach itself between the organization and its suppliers, which are being managed by that service integrator. And in the various relationship journeys, that service integrator will perform the role of the relationship agent and sometimes relationship manager when dealing with the customer they are supporting for the integration, and when dealing with the various suppliers they are working with. But there are some organizations who do not have service integrators. They directly deal with each of their suppliers and partners. That can be more complicated with a lot of administrative overhead, but it can promote better direct engagement and trust between the organization and each of its supplier. So that was about the service relationships and the service integration part. Now, these third parties may support the development, management, and execution of the practice itself. So, for example, they can provide the software tools, and usually the tools are not standalone for each practice. Many of these tools in ITSM are useful for many practices. And however, tools, specifically the CRM, BRM tools, may be used exclusively to manage relationship with the customers who are internal or external. And in such a case, the customer or the business relationship manager should define requirements and interact with other teams and practices of the service provider to ensure that the required tools are procured, implemented, and used in an optimal way. Meaning, the CRM and BRM managers should not work in isolation. They need to connect with the leads and managers from other practices and other teams to decide what kind of tools to procure and how to implement them and how to use them properly. Next, here we have some of the activities that the third parties can perform from the practice. And some of the key things are the third parties can perform surveys, satisfaction measurement of the relationships, and do the relationship analysis as well. And they can also perform an independent assessment of relationships with stakeholders. And in this case, the relationship managers should ensure that the methods used and the reports provided by the supplier are relevant to the organization, and they are as per the relationship management approach. And because suppliers can access the organization's data, it is important that such data is approved by the organization to be shared with those third parties in line with the information security policies of the organization. Third parties can also perform consulting and advisory. These are usually specialized suppliers who have expertise in the practice of relationship management and experience management, and they can help to establish and develop the practice for a specific organization. And they can also help that organization to adopt specific methods and techniques, such as voice of customer approach, and also assist in initially developing the relationship models. However, the models and processes will always be finalized and decided by the concerned organization. That means we have the final point here that the relationship management cannot be completely delegated to an external consultant, and the relationship between the service provider and the key stakeholders must be managed by the involved parties, and external suppliers will only provide the helping hand and provide advice or tools.